So, I'm reading some of Ralph Abernathy's autobiography, and I am in the section that talks about Martin Luther King Jr. And what I want to touch on today is that, Florida has its thing going with curriculum, and it has people in a stir because Florida wants to rewrite history where it talks about enslaved people. However, when I speak about history and bring up some of the dustiness of our civil rights leaders, then people are like, why are you bringing that up? Why you want to talk about that? So I'm saying that to say that people don't have issues with history being told as fairy tales. They have issues of their narrative being blown up. So I want to speak to one more thing before I get started with this. I put on my YouTube page that I was going to be talking about this, and this man says, fighting hard for civil rights may have required some sexual healing. We are humans living out a human experience. Now, why did I bring this up? Men stay on code, no matter what. They stay on code. Now, a lot of the times the narrative of right now about black women, about women in general, is choose better, choose better. You need to choose better. Yes, that's what happens. But let's be real. It has not been our issues going even back to the original F Daddy's time, Freddie D, because he was out here gallivanting with his two side pieces in his woman's house. Civil rights leaders were sitting up here fighting for their right to get to some alabaster for JJ. They no matter what, if they're wearing a suit, if they're sagging their pants, if they're wearing little to nothing, it does not matter. It is not on women's back to make us choose better when no matter what, it's challenging to know who to choose. And now that I have introduced what I am speaking on, I am about to read some of these passages from this book. Now, I am going to start with who Ralph Abernathy was to Martin Luther King and the reason why his perspective should be trusted because he was right there. He was an eyewitness to this. Martin Luther King wanted Ralph Abernathy to be his successor. This is what he says. He knew me better than any man alive, and he was confident that I would do what he would do, that with me at the helm, the right decisions would be made, the right path would be chosen. And you can find in pictures where they were, buddy buddy. So that is the foundation to this next video. Ralph Abernathy's autobiography came out 1989. So he didn't release it to 2 full decades after the assassination of MLK. So I'm just putting that out there. All right, so now I'm going to read with you guys. It says, much has been written in recent years about my friend's weakness for women. Had others not dealt with the matter in such detail, I might have avoided any commentary. We all fall short of the mark, and an excessive preoccupation with one another's shortcomings is a form of pride that we should avoid. Sexual sins are by no means the worst. Hatred and a cold disregard for others are the besetting sins of our time. But they don't sell books or tabloid newspapers. And that's the reason why people have talked about Martin's failings and left the flaws of some others alone. Unfortunately, some of these commentators have only told the bare facts without suggesting the reasons why Martin might have indulged in such behavior. They have also left a false impression about the range of his activities. While I can't completely set the record straight without violating my own sense of what is proper and decent, I think I can make some attempt to render justice of the dead without causing too much unnecessary pain to the living. In the first place, Martin and I were away more often than we were at home, and while this is no excuse for extramarital relations, it was a reason. Some men are better able to bear such deprivations than others, though all of us in Slick headquarters had our weak moments. I don't think it had anything to do with our respective views of what was right or wrong. We all understood and believed in the biblical prohibition against sex outside of marriage. It was just that he had a particularly difficult time with that temptation. His own principal explanation of that difficulty is one I choose not to repeat here. But in addition to his personal vulnerability, he was also a man who attracted women, even when he didn't intend to, and attracted them in droves. Part of his appeal was his predominant role in the black community, and part of it was personal. During the last 10 years of his life, MLK was the most important black man in America. Indeed, he was the most important leader of our people. Our people had seen in many generations, probably the most important ever. That fact alone endowed him with an aura of power and greatness that the women found very appealing. He was a hero, and the greatest hero of his age, and women are always attracted to a hero. So he is just really setting it up like this dude was big, and he was away from home, and he just couldn't turn down all of this for JJ. Even in trying to make it better, it does not sound that good. Then, to Martin's own love of women was apparent in ways that could not easily be pinpointed, but which women clearly sensed even from afar. I remember on more than one occasion sitting on a stage and having Martin turn to me and say, "Do you see that woman giving me the eye? The one in the red dress?" I wouldn't be able to pick her out at such a distance, but already she has somehow conveyed to him her attraction, and he in turn had responded to it. Later, I would see them talking together as if they had known one another forever. I was always a little bewildered at how strongly and unerringly this mutual attraction operated. A recent biography has suggested, without quite saying so, that Martin had affairs with white women as well as black. Such a suggestion presented themselves. Now we're at the point where he's talking about where J. Edgar Hoover is coming for him and his outside activities. I remember in particular a stay at the Willard Hotel in Washington where they not only put in audio receivers but video equipment as well. Then, after collecting enough of this evidence to be useful, they began to distribute it to reporters, law officers, and other people in position to hurt us. Finally, when no one would do Hoover's dirty work for him, someone in the FBI put together a tape of highly intimate moments and sent them to Martin. Unfortunately, and perhaps this was deliberate, Coretta received the tape and played it first. But such accusations never seemed to touch her. She rose above all the petty attempts to damage their marriage by refusing to even entertain such thoughts. Woo, the gaslighting in advance in that statement alone is a mess. In the previous page that I didn't read, Abernathy had gone to J. Edgar Hoover's and he was like, "Dude, stop coming for us. Stop sending these nasty audio recordings to people." So that's where we're starting right here. He says, "In retrospect, I realize how naive I was to believe that such a plea would have any effect on Mr. Hoover. He was clearly a man whose mind was made up on a number of issues and who had gone beyond the point where he listened to opinions that contradicted his own, even when they were supported by facts. But I made the trip anyway, a waste of my own time and the resources of Slip, which paid for my ticket to Washington." So Ralph Abernathy knew that MLK's proclivity to the random vajayjay was bad for business. So he tried to plead with him to stop this. So this is what he says. "Martin, you can't really disguise the nature of certain friendships. If a man and a woman are particularly close to one another, it shows in the way they behave, the way they look at one another, and the way they talk. Don't sell these reporters short. They're much more alert and perceptive than you give them credit for. Besides, a single female among a group of men is bound to excite their imaginations. It's natural for them to want to assign that woman to one of the men, and it's just as natural for them to assign her to the biggest man around. So whatever your relationship with her, you need to cool it down. With Hoover's men hiding under every bed, you can't just afford to continue the way you have." If you stuck with me this long, I appreciate you for sticking around for this long video. Okay, so let me continue. "Sitting there on the edge of the cot, he stared at the wall for a long time, weighing what I had said. When he answered, it was with a friendly but firm tone. 'Ralph, what you say may be right, but I don't care. Nor do I care what Mr. Hoover thinks or says. The FBI can do whatever they please, but I have no intention of cutting off this relationship.'" So MLK said, "I don't care. I don't care about how this is impacting my brand, my relationship with my wife, the civil rights movement, any of that." So he was deliberate in these affairs. This coming from a pastor who should understand what integrity is, and for a leader of a movement to be like this, it is egregious. And when I heard about these relationships, regardless of if they were with a black woman or a white woman, it was with women that were not his wife. So he knew what he was doing, and he continued to do it because he could, because the women liked him, because he was a hero. And what 30 some odd year old man is going to turn down this random vajayjay because he's a leader and needs the vajayjay? I know people prefer the fairy tales of their civil rights leaders to persist, but y'all can go ahead, jump in the comments, tell me what you think, rail on me, whatever. This is what happened, and this is from the words and narrative of Ralph Abernathy. Y'all like, comment, share.